Welcome to this week's Torah lesson. This week's Torah portion is Parsha Shemini. The question of the week is, what can we do to receive the greatest blessings? So in this week's Torah portion, the Torah tells us, Vayihi b'yom hashmini. It was on the 8th day. What happened on the 8th day? There was the completion and dedication of the temple. So Rabbi asked a simple question, what's special and unique about the 8th day? If it happened on the 8th day, there was a reason why. So Rabbi explains like this. We know that 7 is nature, and 8 is above nature. 7 is the 7 days of the week, and 8 is above nature. What happened? For 7 days, they dedicated the temple. The completion was on the 8th day. So they went through the process of nature, and then they had the process of above nature. So you had both. So the Rebbe explains, when you have the fusion of nature, the 7, and above nature, the 8, that creates the greatest blessings. So the question is, that's wonderful. So how do we create that fusion of nature and above nature? So the Rebbe explains, we learned that from Moshe Rabbeinu. Why? Because we know Moshe Rabbeinu was connected to Hashem through Torah. Torah is balance. Moshe represented the balance of the Jewish people. But nevertheless, even though Moshe represented balance, Moshe Rabbeinu's name is made up of 3 letters. Mem, Shin, and Hey. So the first Mem stands for Moshe Rabbeinu, the balance. But the second letter is Shin. What does Shin stand for? Shin stands for Shammai. In the Talmud, there were 2 powerful leaders, and they had 2 different approaches on life. You had Shammai, which represented Gvura, which is discipline, which represents finite. On the other hand, you have the last letter in Moshe Rabbeinu's name, which is a Hey, which represents Hillel. Hillel represents what? The idea of chesed, kindness, which is kindness is all about infinite. So within Moshe Rabbeinu, you had the Mem, which represented balance. You had, on the other hand, you had Shammai, which was Gevura, discipline, which is finite. And you also had the idea of chesed, and you had the idea of infinite. So basically, Moshe Rabbeinu had it all. So the question is, how did he have it all? Where did Moshe Rabbeinu get it, that he had it all, that we can learn from Moshe Rabbeinu to have the same thing? So Rebbe says, we know, it says in Pirkei Avot, that we're starting to learn this week, Moshe kibel Torah mi Sinai. Moshe Rabbeinu received Torah where? From Sinai. So the Rebbe asks a question, it's almost like a funny question. Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from Sinai. He received it from Hashem at Mount Sinai. You don't receive the Torah from a mountain. So what does that mean, Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from Sinai? So the Rebbe explains very, very simple. When the Mishnah says Moshe Rabbeinu received it from Sinai, means he received it by the lesson he got from Mount Sinai. Notice Moshe Rabbeinu, this is what he merited to receive the Torah from Hashem, was the lesson that he took from Sinai, from the mountain of Sinai. Why? Because what was unique about Har Sinai, the Mount Sinai, that Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from Hashem? On one hand, it was a mountain. It wasn't a flat. But on the other hand, it was a humble mountain. It wasn't a huge mountain. So Har Sinai represented a mountain, but humility. And by Moshe Rabbeinu connecting to the idea of Sinai, which means mountains means you have a self-esteem, but it's not an egotistical self-esteem. You have a healthy self-esteem. And because he had a healthy self-esteem, means that Moshe Rabbeinu was talked to God, connected to God, learned Torah. He had all the qualities of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe, Shammai, and Hillel, but he wasn't arrogant about it. He had the humility that he received from Sinai. And because he had the humility he received from Sinai, therefore he was able to receive the Torah and do all the tremendous things that he did. So to answer the question, how can we receive the greatest blessings? By being humble like Moshe Rabbeinu. And will we humble like Moshe Rabbeinu, we'll be able to be connected to the finite and the infinite. And when you're connected to the finite and the infinite, you'll be able to receive all the greatest blessings possible. Thanks so much for joining us for our weekly Torah lesson. This week's Torah lesson is dedicated to the memory of Baruch ben Aryeh Leib, Shlomo ben Yosef, and Rachel bas Lipa. May their souls be elevated by the Torah we're studying in their memory. Have a great and blessed week. Shavua Tov.